Ukraine and 34 other countries have formally approved plans to create a compensation body to pay for damages to Ukraine caused by the Russian invasion, but questions remain about where the money will come from. The Council of Europe has facilitated the International Claims Commission, which will allow Ukrainians to seek compensation for damage, loss, or injury caused by Russia since February 2022. It comes as European leaders prepare to meet in Brussels on Thursday for a high-stakes summit where providing financial support to Ukraine is expected to dominate the agenda. Meanwhile, a poll by Politico has found that respondents in France and Germany want their governments to scale back financial aid to Kiev. The survey found that in the US, Canada, and in the UK, people tilted the other way and favoured maintaining material support. For more on this story, I'm joined on set by our international affairs editor, Douglas Herbert.
Hi, Karis.
Doug, we'll get to that Politico poll in just a moment, but first I want to ask you about Europe's struggle to agree on a financial plan to help Ukraine. Why is it so important, and why are they so close?
Yeah, and are they close? I'll start with the first part. Why is this seen as so important for Europe? This is nothing less than seen as an existential moment, a sort of a geopolitical survival moment. And why do I say that? Context. Donald Trump, in recent days, weeks, first in his national security strategy, then in an interview, has called Europe weak and divisive. He's called Europe, the continent, a decaying group of nations. And he's basically said they don't know what to do. So those are not exactly the types of words you might say that someone directs at an ally. For the Europeans, if they want to remain relevant in the search for peace in Ukraine, in the efforts to bring this war to an end and to bring a lasting, durable peace, they need to literally put their money where their mouth is. Now, this plan for Europe is seen as Europe's way of showing that it can remain relevant and that it could actually give itself a voice. And the plan being, obviously, we've talked about it quite a bit, Karis, is essentially to unlock up to 210 billion, not million, but billion euros in loans, and then give it to Ukraine, basically, in loan form, to help Ukraine get through the next 2 years, both to finance its government, but also to finance a lot of its battlefield needs, its military needs. It is money that Ukraine desperately needs. In the next fiscal year, Ukraine is facing almost a 72 billion euro shortfall. These aren't funds that are optional for Ukraine. It needs them. It needs them if it is not going to go literally bankrupt as soon as next spring. So for Europe, it's a matter of survival in trying to show Donald Trump and also Vladimir Putin that not only does it deserve a place at the negotiating table, which it has in many ways been denied, at least it feels it's been sidelined to a great extent so far, it needs to have that role because its own security is directly at stake. So this is about Europe's needs, and it's also about financially Ukraine's needs, both on the battlefield, because it will help Ukraine to fend off any further Russian aggression, but also it will enable Ukraine to come to that negotiating table in a stronger position. If you're financially bankrupt, that it's not just battlefield losses that hurt you, but not having any money in your coffers isn't a good position to come to the negotiating table with. That's why this is so important.
And I mentioned that poll by Politico that indicated that some people in Europe are lukewarm about giving Ukraine more cash. Some even want to scale it back. But English-speaking allies feel differently.
They do. And you mentioned the poll at the top. This was done once again by Politico magazine. I'm going to show you the poll there. And basically, I know there's a lot of numbers there. There's 5 different countries. What Politico did is it basically surveyed respondents, 10,000 respondents in 5 countries, so 2,000 in each of those countries earlier this month, and it basically wanted to find out where does public opinion stand? Let's keep that up on the screen. Where does it stand in relation to continuing to give cash to Ukraine? What it basically found is, this split between, say, continental countries like Germany and France, and then the Anglophone countries, the UK, the US, obviously not in Europe, and nor is Canada in Europe. And what's the big split there? Well, the split is that those in France and Germany, a large share, a minority still, but a large share are in favor. You see the red and the off red. They're in favor of scaling back aid to Ukraine, not just not keeping it the same, actually taking some aid away. And you could see that those red bars are much shorter shorter. In the case of the three Anglophone countries there, UK, US, and Canada, that is, very fewer people are in favor of drastically scaling it back. On the contrary, they want to either see it stay the same or increase. And I'll just say that these trends, Germans and French, this large number of people wanting to see it scaled back, this is mirroring what European leaders, some see as a worrying trend. The biggest support for keeping cash or scaling back cash from Ukraine, the biggest support is among those who support far-right parties in Europe. Does it mean there's an absolute connection there? No. That's just what this poll indicates. When they look at the political affiliations of those who want to scale back money versus those who want to increase it or even ramp it up, there is seemingly a link between support for far-right parties here in Europe, such as the Rassemblement, the National Rally in France, and the Alternative for Germany in Germany, and the amount of money they want to give to Ukraine. I will just note, we don't have a separate graph for it. Similar tracking trends were seen for military aid, right? So this chart is about financial aid for Ukraine, but the same trends hold in terms of giving military support, weaponry to Ukraine. And we've also noticed refugee fatigue, and that means more and more Europeans are just sick and tired of taking Ukrainians in displaced by the war, and those numbers are especially high in Germany.
And finally, Doug, even if Europe agrees to the financing plan and even if a peace deal is struck, some are warning that Russia may be gearing up to confront NATO on another front in 3 to 5 years. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. What more is to tell about that is it's the Finnish Prime Minister, Petteri Orpo, who is holding a summit today in Helsinki of 8 what they're called Eastern Flank states. That is 8 European states who share a maritime and land border with Belarus or Russia. And what he's basically warning is he's begging his European colleagues, we need you to direct more resources for our own defense on the eastern flank of Europe. We are here on the Eastern Front literally protecting the European continent. And his fear is that if a peace deal is eventually struck in Ukraine, it is going to perhaps encourage or lead Putin to redeploy his forces towards the eastern flank of Europe, that the threat will be clear, and like you said, the time frame being 3 to 5 years. So right now, those eastern states, among them Estonia and Lithuania and Poland, all the Scandinavian countries, all of those states there are predicted to spend more than 5% of their economies on defense in the next year or so, surpassing Donald Trump's sort of imposed target for these countries. They are spending by far the most on defense relative to their economies. And what the Finnish PM is saying is we're essentially, even though we're geographically the ones close to Russia, we're all in this together. It is as much in your interest as it is in ours for you to redirect some of your defense spending resources to us so we could help shore up the continental security. It's not an idle threat. He says this is the here and now. As the Europeans seek to reach that peace deal, this is happening in conjunction. They say Putin is not going to give up anytime soon on his plans to basically see off what he sees as a threat from Europe and the NATO alliance.